So, Daniel Farke did his press conference yesterday, and we learned a fair bit about what's been going on with the sort of team selection issues. We've got a bunch of players coming back, which is sort of essential, specifically Pascal Struijk, who I fully expect will just drop into the side. He's just a very good centre back, and born out, as I'm sure a lot of people have started to become accustomed to, isn't the quickest and is a little bit sort of sluggish in terms of his positioning. Maybe it's just a lack of sharpness, I don't know. But he's never been the most sort of satisfying player. In addition to that, Anton Stach's coming back, and as is Dan James, but there's a little bit of uncertainty as to how his body's going to hold up because he keeps getting re injured. But Daniel Farke has been given a very, very complicated situation to deal with as Noah Okafor is now injured as well, which is always fun. So in this video I'm going to talk through what the sort of options are for the match against Aston Villa and ultimately what sort of worries this brings up, because they're fairly significant primarily around the idea of squad depth. As we all know, we kind of could have done with another winger when it came to the summer, and maybe when it came to January. I'll be honest, I was happy enough with January. I thought we needed a 10/wing kind of combo, but it's fine. Behind Okafor, we've got Willie Nunto, which is okay. We've got Dan James, which is okay. We've got Brendan Aronson, who can play on the wing, but he's going to be filling up the other wing. Without Noah Okafor available, there isn't someone who can really sort of grab a match by the scruff of the neck and take on a man. Willie Nunto, excellent footballer, without a doubt, don't get me wrong. However, he's not the kind of guy that will pick up the ball and just go, I'm going to dribble past you. There is nothing you can do about it except try to foul me, which is a little bit of a shame. I think he had that sort of pizzazz when he was a little bit earlier in his career. As he's grown and developed, he's sort of become one of those players that's a little bit more, let's keep the ball and build another attack, which, fair enough, but that's his sort of personal style, and I don't know if it's the best style for a flank opposite Brendan Aronson, who is your sort of workman-like kind of guy. You need flair on one side, workman-likeness on the other. I don't know if Willie Nonto is necessarily that, and this makes things a little bit rough for Daniel Farke going into the match against Aston Villa. And there's a few different things that we can do in terms of the lineup that are worthy of looking at. The first of them is one that I'm going to immediately rule out. The first one would, in theory, be that we can just go to four at the back again. Because Noah Okafor out, you've got a chance to do a little bit of a rejig. I personally don't think that that makes a load of sense because, to be honest, looking at Aston Villa and looking at our improvement in form since we went to three, there is absolutely no benefit to doing that. If we just sort of stay the course with a similar system to what we've been doing, that'll be a far more comfortable way for us to approach this one. Which brings us to our choice of three different systems. I'm going to run through what, like, each of those. Ooh, that hurt. Sorry, little baby. I'm currently holding a baby, and that's why I'm only really doing things with one arm. There, you can see a little bit of head. But I fell off the armrest, which was fun. Let's move that back to the right place. But it brings up a little bit of a sort of question mark around what exactly the best sort of move is with three at the back. So there's one case in which we just look to do a 5-2-3. The same old two midfielders, make it Gruev, make it Ampadu, yank out Noah Okafor, chuck in Willie Nonto. Brilliant. Hope that that works. One of the benefits to that is Nonto is someone that is happy to play relatively inside as a sort of faux 10, in the same way that Brendan Aronson is on the other flank, which effectively makes it more of a sort of 5-2-2-1. Calvert-Lewin standing on his own up top, but with Aronson working off him and Nonto working off him, and it makes things a little bit more fluid at the top of the pitch. I do like a nice fluid front line where anyone can pop up anywhere, and this sort of brings a little bit more of that, especially with the fact that Calvert-Lewin drops very, very deep. Another route is we could, and this one I kind of like, no, in fact, I'll save that for last. Woohoo, there we go, retention trick. We could go with a 5-3-3-1, which is something that we have done before, which is your standard sort of back five. It'll be a Bogle one side, Goodmanson, three centre-backs, then Stack, Ampadu, Gruev, Aronson, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. That's a thing that we've done a few times in which Calvert-Lewin will tend to be a little bit sort of isolated, but you've got Brendan Aronson who will play on the left flank for the majority of this time, with Bogle being the one that gets out on the right-hand side. sort of works in theory some of the time, but I don't think it's necessarily the one that's going to be ideal. However, I think it's the one that Daniel Farke potentially goes with. The one that I would personally choose is more of a 5-3-2. Five at the back, as mentioned. Centre backs, Gudmundsson, Bogle. Three midfielders. This is where there's a little bit of a question. Ampadu deserves a spot without a doubt. Stack, I think, plays because he's been definitely growing into the season as it goes. The third slot is a bit of a question mark. Tanaka, maybe. He's a reasonably good progressive player, however, he's relatively struggled in recent weeks. I'm not entirely sure why. My personal theory is back at the international break a few months ago, where he accidentally broke someone's leg. That might have thrown him off a little bit, because ever since then, he's not quite been on his game. Like a little bit of a psychological thing going on. There's an argument for maybe Gruev, but then you've got Stack, Ampadu, Gruev, that's very defensive. Longstaff, similar thing. I'd maybe want to do Aronson as like a faux 10 kind of 8 thing. So you've got Gruev and Ampadu doing the defensive work, Aronson progressing the ball up to Calvert-Lewin and Metcher at the top of the pitch. Which I think, looking at the way that Aston Villa play, they typically play with 4 players at the back, which is something that we can absolutely look to exploit by having those 2 centre forwards, in addition to the wing backs bobbing on, which deals with the full backs, and then Aronson having a little pocket of space available, because with the 2 centre backs being pulled around by the centre forwards, there's going to be gaps that open up. For me, a 5-3-2 against Aston Villa is absolutely a perfect way to go. Personally, I think the fact that we're away from home and Aston Villa are being very, 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 very good this season, they're more likely to go with that 5-3-1-1. But the 5-3-2, I think, will open a lot of opportunities that we won't necessarily get from any of our other systems, which is a shame, because I think we have very good players. We can get something out of this match. It'll be difficult no matter what. Let's be completely clear about that. Not going to be an easy game of football. They are where they are on merit. And where they are is, I think, third off the top of my head, firmly in the title race. But I think, based on our potential team selection, based on Aston Villa's consistently strong performances but potential vulnerabilities, they're not super high scoring. If we can keep them quiet, we can get something out of this. This should be, whilst difficult, a genuinely fascinating match from a tactical point of view. And I think there is no doubt we can get something out of this if we make the right decisions, if we use our bench properly, and if we take advantage of the weaknesses that Aston Villa will no doubt present to us. They are not a perfect team. If anything, they are a deeply, deeply flawed team. We are probably the weakest Premier League at the top end for a long time. Hence, Arsenal somehow being top. I imagine that they will probably lose that by the end of the season, which will be hilarious. But I think there's something in this for us. And I think there's something in the comments section if you wanted to have a little bit of a chat about it. Hey, hope you enjoyed. I will see you all later. Toodaloo.